Welcome back, guys. Today we got a clearly a different angle. We're gonna go through some data that I collected for my 178 grain ELDMs. They're getting shot out of my Axis 2 22-inch barrel. I believe it's a 1 in 10 twist, 308, and we're shooting the Hornady 178 grain ELD matches. Now it says on the box twist rate of 1 in 12. My gun seems to like the 180s. I hunt with SSTs 180s, so I know that it groups pretty well. It groups right about 1 MOA all the way through to 300 yards or so, 400 yards maybe. So all the data that I collected, all the stuff that I'm going to show you from velocity graphs and all that, was all collected with my lab radar and put into my computer with a program called Chrono Plotter. It's an awesome program that you can just plug your SD card in from your lab radar. It'll search for it. You can pull up your shot strings, and it's a great program. There's videos on how to use it effectively, and it's totally worth it if you do any kind of velocity testing or hand loading where you are checking for velocities and nodes and all that. Um, So I knew my gun liked the 180s, so I seen these sitting on the shelf, and I said, "Screw it, I'll buy them." But I believe next, after I get something developed for the 178s, I believe I'm going to go to the 208s ELDMs. They're for a 1 in 10 twist. So the BCs on these are, we'll go just with the G7. It's a BC of 0.275. So these are really sweet shooting bullets. I like them a lot. That's why I'm trying to get a load developed so I can have a dedicated range load. Now, I got some screenshots of my ballistic calculator and a few graphs that we're going to go over. I tried two different powders with this bullet. We got IMR 3031. That's my go to powder because it's readily available and cheaper than a lot of the other options for 308 loads. And we got some Varget tests. This most recent time I went out to the range, I loaded up Varget. I'm trying not to use it as much as possible because I bought that specific pound for a different project that I got coming up. And Varget's like one of the most well renowned powders for that specific caliber, that specific build that I'm going to do. So I'm trying not to use the Varget. So we're going to go over. I got a, let's call it a rough ladder test for the 3031 and a rough ladder test for the Varget. And then I got a um, fine ladder test. I'll explain this all in a second. And I picked a couple of nodes out of each of those and inputted that information into my ballistic calculator, and we'll go over that, the differences between the two. So for Varget, it's one of the Hodgdon's extreme powders. It's known for being very temperature stable. You know, the same load that you work up in 30-degree weather will work in 100-degree weather, and vice versa. So that's why it's something I tested out because I like to shoot year round. So if I get a set velocity in summer at 75 degrees, I should get a very similar velocity at like 30 degrees in the middle of winter. So that's why I was testing with Varget. 3031 is not known for being temperature stable. It's a rather old school powder. Not a lot of people use it anymore, which is why it's cheaper and more readily available as well. So that's my go-to powder. That's what I would prefer to dial this load in with. But it's a very long grain extruded powder, so you don't get a whole lot of the volume in the case is less than what you can get with Varget, which is a short extruded powder. So I think we're going to start with the 3031. We got two different nodes that I picked out on the rough ladder. We got one node at 38 grains of powder. We had an ES of 5, extreme spread of 5, and a standard deviation of 2.5. And that came in right about 2460 or so. So that's one of the nodes that I picked there. And then on the very top end of this scale, I got 39.5 coming in right at about 25, 70, 75, something like that. And we got an extreme spread of 7 and a standard deviation of 4.9. Now, as far as like a general rule of thumb for me, I pick nodes that have an extreme spread of less than 20, and single digit SDs are always my goal. Extreme spread, just for people who need to know, extreme spread is the velocity difference between the highest velocity and the lowest velocity of that string of shots. Now, with this, I believe I only have 3 shots for each um, powder charge. And the Varget ladder test, I have 5 shots for each. Now, Hornady came out with a podcast. It was a couple of months back, basically saying that when you're doing ladder tests, you're not shooting enough to get a good enough judgment of that um, powder charge or seating depth or whatever you're testing for. They're saying that somewhere in the 30-ish shots per whatever your variable that you're testing is would give you a better picture. So going off of these 5 shots strings and these 3 shot strings, I can take this knowledge that I have here and extend it to 30 shots or 40 or 50 or whatever. And their point was that small sample sizes don't give you a good enough percentage. You need a large sample size to get a clear representation of what you're looking at for your variable. So, all right. So we got the 2460 for the 3031, 38 grains. I have my ballistic calculator set to read every 50 yards, and the yellow line is where we hit that transonic speed window. And the whole reason for that being the only marking on this ballistic is because this is a match bullet. This is a range bullet. So I'm not hunting. I don't need a certain velocity or a certain foot pound of energy to make contact at target. This is simply just for shooting long range at the range. So I wanted to keep it above that transonic window. That way I don't have to worry about yawing, pitch, tumble, um, anything that goes along with the transonic speed, the transition between super and subsonic. So at 38 grains of 3031, our transonic window starts at 754 yards. So that's farther than what I'm going to shoot. My range only goes to 600 yards. So anything under 600 yards is, or anything over 600 yards is perfect for me as long as I'm still supersonic by the time I hit that target. I'm okay with that. So those would be good. That'd be a good one to test. So at 38 grains of 3031, our transonic window starts at 754 yards. So that's farther than what I'm going to shoot. My range only goes to 600 yards. Hey guys, this is post edit me wearing my new shirt that says I'm on a government watch list. I was editing my video last night after work, and I realized that I kind of went off on a tangent and then looped back around to stuff that I had already covered. So I'm just going to try and pick it up here where I left off. We're looking at 39.5 grains of 3031 on the ballistic app. It looks like I start hitting the transonic window at 818 yards. That's 2570-ish feet per second. And that seems all right. I'm not going to have any issues shooting that. And then we got, we're going to go to our Varget ladder test. And it looks like we got a good velocity node at 40 grains of powder with a ES of 17 and a standard deviation of 8.7. That's great. We're below the 20 in the single digit like I look for, so that's perfect. And then at the top end of this ladder test, we got a 42 grain charge, ES of 10, SD of 4.8. Now with the 42 grains, I was getting a little bit of bolt stick, some heavy lift, and some hard time ejecting. So I might dial that back, but that's a node that we should look at because it had really low standard deviation, and it was pretty decent velocity. That was, what does it say here, 2620 feet per second. That's zooming with a 180 grain bullet. That's screaming fast. I mean, for reference, my 180s that I hunt with, I think they're 2400 feet per second. So that's screaming fast at 26, over 26 for that. So that's the Varget ladder test I got here, and now we're gonna go into the ballistic app for 40 grains of Varget at 2,500 feet per second. The transonic window starts at about 775 yards, so again, perfect. My range only goes to 600, so I don't have to worry about nothing past that. For the meantime, I am currently looking for a longer range that I can shoot at. And then for the 42 grains of Varget, 2620 feet per second, our transonic window isn't till out past 830 something yards, 835 it says. So all of these loads that I have that are like nodes that I want to expand on, they're all perfectly viable for 600 yards and in, which is, like I said, my range only goes to 600. I typically end up shooting somewhere in the 3 to 4 to 500 yard range most of the time. So that's what we got. I just loaded up some experimental stuff with some different powder. Same bullet, same seating depth, different primer, I believe I did as well. I don't have them in front of me. I already packed them away. So I'll go over that. I'll cover that in another video. But right now it's looking like we got 4 solid velocity nodes. Again, that's what we're going with. We got I really, like I said, I'd like to fine tune a 3130 load, but with it being a non-temperature stable powder, I'm not sure how well it's going to go. I'll have to dial something in this summer and then chronograph it in winter to see how much the velocity fluctuated. I did the same thing with my hunting loads. I developed them in summer, and then when I went out to go with the guys for sight in, I brought my chronograph and checked what they were on the chronograph, and it was only, I want to say, 70 feet per second difference. Like, it wasn't a drastic number. I mean, something that I wouldn't prefer for a long range use, but the ranges that we typically hunt here are, I mean, I don't think I've taken a shot past 200 yards ever. So anything, 300 and in, I'm not worried about that 70 foot per second difference. I'll still be well within the kill zone shot on a deer. So that's what I got for you guys here. I think we're gonna call it there. Until next time.